Hello, welcome to Simply Raby. I'm your host, Ed Raby, and this is the channel where we ask the question, what is your personal philosophy and how do you live it? And I do that by basically teaching you about my personal philosophy and some of the things that I do involving it and a few other things where I just kind of log my life and share that with you. And hopefully through my example, you can learn something and maybe even apply some things to your life. Today I want to talk about a little bit more serious topic for me personally and for a lot of other people. I want to talk about therapy. I want to talk about depression, and I want to talk about a new one that's kind of come into my life, autism. So first I want to talk about therapy because one of the great joys of my life coming back to Michigan was reconnecting with my old therapist who's still in business, and she's great. And she immediately said, yes, I'll gladly take you back on, has been very gracious to me as far as pricing and things like that. And I connected with her through the Clergy Project, and so she's just been really awesome. And one of the things I had a problem with down in Texas as well is for about a year and a half I didn't have a therapist. And I'm beginning to think that that was kind of a big mistake, but I also had a real problem finding a therapist that wasn't religiously based in Texas. I'm sure there were some, but it was like finding a needle in a haystack. Almost everybody down there had some sort of religious axe to grind, and it really kind of bothered me. And you gotta accept Jesus or whatever, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I ended up pretty much saying, you know what, hell with it. I just won't do a therapist for a while. And not having somebody to talk to and come up with issues really I think was detrimental to me on a personal level. And so when I got back to Michigan, I immediately reconnected. One of the problems that we had was licensing. Like she couldn't practice in Texas. And so otherwise we were doing Zoom calls. But I think the counseling licensing process needs to be like, if you're licensed in another state, you should be allowed to practice via Zoom in another state, to keep your clients. I think that would attract a lot more people to counseling if they knew they could counsel via online, which is the way me and my counselor do it. She lives, easily a couple hundred miles away. So I've had her as a counselor for 3 years, and we're now working on our fourth, I think. And one of the, I'm going to talk about my last topic, autism, and that's a more recent thing that we've been talking about. So the reason I talk about therapy is if you are having problems, swallow your pride and go talk to somebody. Go find somebody to talk to. It is better to go talk to somebody and pay a little money. Your life and the way you live your life and your happiness is worth whatever money you would have to spend to get through that. And there are plenty of therapists that understand the whole financial situation and are happy to take something rather than nothing, or even go pro bono if they really feel, you need some help. So don't think that that's not a thing. There's ways to find a way to get past the cost, but it's better to talk to somebody that's a professional, that has a objective, point of view about what you're thinking and feeling. And that kind of leads me to a long-term problem that I've had for a long time, which is depression. And in particular, I'm high functioning in my depression. Now, a lot of people get offended by the term high functioning, low functioning. I don't. And I don't really get the offense because it's kind of a way of describing how people can have mental conditions and still be high functioning, in the sense that they can still go to work and live their life and raise their kids and have hobbies and do that kind of stuff. But inwardly they have this ticking time bomb that's depression or ADHD or autism, you can be high functioning in that sense. And low functioning is when you can't do those things. You can't go into society. You can't, be the good mom and dad or whatever. And there are times that you just completely check out. I've had low functioning moments in my life, particularly after my father's death, that I really could have used some therapists to talk through. But at the time, I was religious. And I think this is where religion really screws people up. As I've mentioned before, I'm kind of a pagan atheist. I don't really believe in anything spiritual because I don't see any good evidence to believe in it. It's all made up stories to me these days. But what I want to stress there is giving it to God or prayer or whatever is really talking to yourself. And so you can actually make things worse, okay, by doing that. You need somebody outside you that you can verify is real and objective and can talk to you. And especially if you're dealing with depression. Now, for me, depression is an old adversary. Just feeling sad, not really getting a lot of joy out of life is a regular occurrence for me. And I can go to work and do things and come back home and feel sad the entire time, but I'm too stubborn to give up, so I'll get up the next day and do it again. And that's a problem because we only get one life, and we really need to have a way to find a way to enjoy it. And I think therapy really helps with that because it starts to let you talk about what it is that makes you depressed and what are your coping mechanisms. And for me, finding more positive coping mechanisms has always been a struggle. For me, it's lifting weights. There's something about lifting weights that just meditatively and emotionally I just get into. I also write quite a bit. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. It's almost like with my writing, it's almost like I'm manic and depressive. I go back and forth, and there'll be moments when I'm writing thousands and thousands of words a day, and then there's other days where I don't write a thing. And as long as I'm writing, when I write, my emotions and things come out. It's like all that stuff just comes out my fingertips. So it's as I'm typing, and it becomes a coping mechanism. I have a few others, like keeping everything orderly, keeping everything clean. I'm not OCD about it, because there's still a little, I look around the room now and there's still, little pieces of things on the carpeted floor. OCD person wouldn't tolerate that, but, I'm going to vacuum later. And, keeping everything in place, having systems, routines, these are coping mechanisms that allow me to function regardless of how I'm feeling. And that's a way of dealing with it. But therapy, I think, is superior because it allows you to actually talk about the real motivations, getting behind the mask, so to speak, of why you do what you do. Now, a new one for me is autism. My therapist shared with me a couple sessions ago that before I had left for Texas, she was starting to get a picture, and she had been working with me for a couple years, two and a half years by that time, and she said, I wanted to run this by you before you left, but then you left for Texas. And she says, and then I couldn't talk to you about it. And, because of licensing. And she says, Ed, is it quite possible that you're slightly autistic? And, I said, well, yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, I didn't have the reaction I think a lot of people have to autism because I've read a lot about it. As a teacher, I had to deal with it. Basically what autism is you're neurologically, your nervous system is wired a little bit differently. In some cases, it's hypersensitive. And so, I watched a few videos. I looked at how the testing works. I looked at what some of the questions are in the testing, began to go through it in my mind. And then this last session, which was yesterday, I talked to her about it, and I said, given what they say is some of the signs of autism, the actual signs of autism, yeah, maybe I am slightly on that scale. And it would explain a lot. It would explain how at a certain point in my life, I feel like I guess the best way to describe it is short-circuited. Like the stress had gotten to a certain point where intellectually I'm fine. But my body and my nervous system is going, yeah, we can't do this. And it leads to, bad behavior at times. It's led to where I just, completely go, a completely different direction because I have to get away from whatever it is. And I think that's a lot of part of the reason I left Texas was that too, because I just got to a point where the homesickness and a whole bunch of other things just were kind of short-circuiting my brain, and I had to get out. And what this has kind of opened up for me, I guess, is a few possibilities of why I do what I do. And so I'm kind of exploring this, and to me, I don't look at that anymore, and this is where therapy, because therapy likes to put labels on things, and a lot of people hate labels. But a label is nothing more than a way of identifying what your problem might be and fixing that problem and trying to fix that problem. And so I don't have a problem, with dealing with something if that's a possibility. Now, am I officially diagnosed? No. Am I going to seek official diagnosis? I don't know. I'm 54. I don't know if I need one. And what would be the advantage of doing so? The waiting list is really long, and it is a bit expensive to get a diagnosis, and I don't really think I can afford that right now. So it's more of a personal choice for a lot of reasons, but it doesn't mean, and this is why I think I've listened to a couple actual people on YouTube saying, hey, self-diagnosis for a while may be all you have for like 2-3 years. And you've got to do it because it's your only option. And, so you kind of have to deal with it. But looking at my life, looking at the way I do things, looking how my coping mechanisms work, autism seems a reasonable possibility at a low level. I look at my history from childhood forward, and I don't like social situations, and it's not just a personal aversion or personal dislike. It's like when I get in them, my body literally has issues, and that's always been so. So it's like, it's something to explore. I'm still really new at it. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But understand that I'm very sensitive and sympathetic to people that are going through various levels of autism. So make sure that you're getting the help you need if you know that that's you, and if you're like me, kind of going, hey, I'm an adult and I've just been possibly have this, and that's kind of really the problem right now with the whole autism thing, is we're really good at catching it in kids, but adult autism, which we'd have to conclude that a bunch of people have been autistic all this time and we've just never really identified it or looked at it. And now we can, and we're playing catch up with a lot of people that have, gone through the system and not been diagnosed because, they're older. I'm 54, and getting a possibility, oh, you might be autistic. Well, that explains a lot looking back at my past history, but it doesn't, how does that help me now? What can I do? I mean, there's a term in autism, masking. I'm really good at that. I'm damn good at it. And if it is autism, then that fits me really hand in glove. I'm really damn good at covering up my emotions and what I'm really feeling and how I feel about certain social situations. So, it's one of those things. But it's something to consider for the future. I just want to encourage everybody, if you're struggling with something, it's better to get a therapist and talk to somebody about it than live with it. I've come to realize the joy of even going through some of the hard stuff and dealing with some of the emotional issues that I have trouble dealing with. Therapy has been kind of a, forgive the expression, godsend. That just has kind of changed the way I look at how I deal with my problems. And so I just wanted to do a little video to talk about therapy and, fighting with depression and autism. If that's where you are, I'm with you. Okay, I'm not against you. I'm down here in the trenches with you. And, we'll figure it out together if that's possible. I'm no expert on any of these topics, but I've been exposed to them, and over time you pick up stuff. So, kind of here with you. Oh, yeah, I want to thank everybody for stopping by. This has been Simply Raby with your host, Ed Raby. I would just encourage you to like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers I get, the quicker I get, the more things I get to do. I'd really like to open up my community tab, and I'd really like to get memberships going, things like that, so the channel can be better supported. So I appreciate any bit of help that you guys give. And as always, hit that notification bell so you get new videos when they're uploaded. Once again, I thank you for hopping by. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a great day.